Give a person a fish and you feed them for a day. You teach them to fish and you teach them for a lifetime. I truly believe this applies to leadership. As a leader, we have our hands full trying to answer questions and solving other people's problems. And personally, I have a suspicion that a lot of the time they could solve it themselves. As a leader, we do have the knowledge and the experience and the expertise, which is great, and we should share it with others. However, it needs to be done in the right situation. So, most of the time, when we are giving advice, we are essentially feeding them so they can come back to us another day. I've seen people doing this, and this comes from a deep desire to be recognized by others as being a helpful person. There is a deep desire to be needed and wanted. When someone asks them a question or reaches out, they absolutely love that feeling because they feel they are helping and supporting. But in leadership, it can be a real hindrance. Recently, I was overseeing a transition, and the lady who was handing over and taking a sabbatical was working flat out 12 hours, jumping into every call, trying very hard to answer every question that her directs had and her team members had. And as I spoke to her, I realized that she was starting to feel the anxiety of that vacuum that would come when there would be no one who would be able to recognize her for being a helpful person. This incident helped me to relate to a story that I had heard quite some time back about a man who came across a cocoon. Now, this man came across a cocoon with a small hole and a butterfly, really struggling to get through it. So, absolutely fascinated with the butterfly struggle, he stood there and watched it for several minutes before moving on. The next day, passing through the same path, he realized that the butterfly was still struggling to get through the same hole. He stood there and for some time watching the small thing struggle, and he had a deep desire to help it. But after a while, he walked away from the scene and left it for itself. The next day, he was walking towards the same spot, hoping that the butterfly would have flown away. But as he reached the spot, he realized that the butterfly was still struggling and was almost at the point of giving up, and he could not help himself today. He had carried a pair of scissors with him, and he cut through the cocoon, and out came the butterfly with ease. But to his absolute horror, instead of the butterfly he expected, the butterfly had an engorged body and withered wings. Because the man, in his haste to help, did not realize that the struggle for the butterfly to get through the hole in the cocoon serves to force the fluid from its body into the wings so it can be complete and it can be formed and fly as it should. So, this story stays with me as I lead and what I can do in the service for the people who are working for me. So I challenge you as leaders, the next time you dive in and give advice, is to think about how much pleasure you get from solving the problem. Instead, give the greatest gift of giving to the other person the pleasure of solving their own problems. Obviously, you need to ask some great questions and get them to explore their situation, and more importantly, it's also about patience. Waiting while in fact the other person struggles to reach their own solution, because leaders are surrounded by great people